Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the wrestling podcast, Getting Over. Elimination Chamber is coming to you this weekend, and we've got all the news, matches, predictions you possibly want to get you prepared for Elimination Chamber. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Big one there is share the podcast around. Means a lot to us. If you've got a wrestling fan in your life, you send them this podcast. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, Getting Over.
Recording in progress.
Hello. As you can tell, if you're watching on the YouTubes by my particular location, we are back once again. Welcome along, everybody. It's time for the Getting Over podcast right here on CookieCast. As always, this isn't a singles match, but more of a fatal four-way, as I'm joined by the regulars of Mr. Matthew Moore, Mr. Paul Williams, and the creator of CookieCast himself, Mr. Andy Cook. I think, based on introductions of the past, this might be the point where I have to issue the apologies, because given recent events, in no way, shape or form, when Andy has been referred to as the Vince McMahon of CookieCast, none of those things are legally binding. No offence was intended at the time, and Andy certainly did not have relations with that woman. So yeah, anyway, allegedly. Moving on. We'll start where we always start. It's the predictions title, and last time out we were here to predict the Royal Rumble. But just before those predictions were made, Andy took the title from Matt via a tiebreak situation, heading into one of the most unpredictable premium live events of the year. Would this still be the case once the Rumble does settled? Well, gentlemen, have we seen the Rumbles?
Oh yes.
She managed to get through it fairly quickly. I was quite surprised. I actually thought the women's one was better, if I'm honest. As far as Rumble matches go, anyway. The actual match itself. Anyway, we were playing for a maximum of 12 points. And we made a nice little pattern on the results. We got a 4, 5, 6 and 7 out of the possible 12. So the extra points were made up by the bonus categories of surprise entrance, longest participant time, and most eliminations. That was in play for both Rumble matches. We had all predicted Roman Reigns and Logan Paul to retain their respective championships, which was sort of a given, really. But yeah, here's where things then went adrift for some. So, defending champion Andy went from first to worst, unfortunately for you, with 4 points this time around. Paul, despite picking Bayley to win the Women's Rumble, because there was absolutely no way she wasn't, he managed a point more on 5. So that then left it down to Matt and me. And I'm very happy to say that at the end of the night, that it was me that got the 7 points with Matt on the 6. So I was quite happy with that. It might have had something to do with the fact that I got both Rumble winners, which I was quite happy about, and one of the surprises. The points for the longest and most eliminations, however, nobody got. The longest in the match was Jey Uso. We either had Cody, Sami Zayn, or Drew McIntyre. Unfortunately for Matt, Sami Zayn came in at about late 20s.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, yep, nope.
Yep, wasn't very long at all, was he? And I had Drew, which unfortunately didn't particularly carry off either, because I think he made Final Four though, didn't he, in the end? So yeah, not great. Most eliminations, surprisingly, the longest in the women's match was Bailey, and again, nobody got that one. She came in at number 3, obviously went all the way through to win. Most eliminations, I thought, we're gonna pick up some points. Andy had Drew, Paul had Damien Priest, me and Matt had Gunter in the men's match. It's got to be one of them. Nope, that would have been Bron Breakker from NXT, who's not even on the main roster, or wasn't even on the main roster at that point. In the women's match, however, we did fare a little better, as me and Matt both picked up a point for Nia Jax. Overall, as Rumbles go, I thought it was all right.
Yeah.
It wasn't a terrible event. It had what I expected to be probably the ending. Obviously, I picked Cody to win. It felt right that the whole event went off the air with him pointing up and sort of drawing a little bit of Roman Reigns, who was sat in his skybox. Having put in a really, really busy shift in that fatal 4-way match earlier on in the night. And yeah, everything seems set. So we'll move on to the news. The SmackDown after the Rumble saw Cody Rhodes come out and initially declare he wasn't facing Roman at Mania, despite what had happened at the end of the Rumble, but he knew a man who was. Here comes the newly minted TKO director and all-round egomaniac, The Rock. It's safe to say that for that entire weekend, and around a week afterwards, the internet, with regards to the little corner of it that belongs to the wrestling, kind of melted a little bit. We Want Cody was trending from that SmackDown all the way through until I think the end of the following SmackDown, and then again a period since. More surprisingly, people other than me actually booed The Rock.
And people have the audacity to say that I have an agenda against Tony Khan and Dave Meltzer and all that AEW nonsense, when this spice comes from this particular side of the Cookie Cast podcast arm.
We're in full agreement about Meltzer. He can find a bin and dive in, for as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I mean, luckily for WWE, they've still got Triple H in charge of the booking these days and not the former chairman. And change is actually a thing, apparently. So WWE held a WrestleMania kickoff press conference, which I'm sure you're all aware was in Vegas in the days leading up to the Super Bowl. Kind of a smart move, I guess, with so many eyes already on the area. But here we got the confirmation that Cody's final decision would actually be Roman Reigns. So Cody's facing Roman Reigns, and The Rock is not involved as a participant in that match. Cue the full Rock heel turn, and now he's aligned himself with Roman Reigns. One thing that I didn't know about The Rock was that he could swear so many times on TV during the end of that press conference. The guy on the beat machine for WWE has finally earned his money, because he was working overtime in the backstage segments. But yeah, since then, heel Rock continued to grace our screens, and we've even had Seth Rollins declare that it will help Cody in his battle against the Bloodline, which seems kind of odd, as he'll now have his hands full with a new challenger at WrestleMania after Elimination Chamber this coming weekend. But obviously more on that a little later. Did we all see the press conference stuff? What are the thoughts on where this is possibly headed?
So the funniest thing that I'd seen that had come out of the press conference was obviously they had the panel, which was obviously what they've been doing now for the past what seems like 10 years, where they have it set away from the main stage. This one was Michael Cole, Pat McAfee, CM Punk, and Big E, which was nice to see because he's not obviously been around for a long time. I believe as I dubbed him on the chat, not quite so Big E as obviously his his neck injury has led to probably a reduction in the heaviness of the weight he can lift these days, which is a shame. At one point, after that bit of the set 2 with the Rock, Reigns, Cody, and Seth, at one point, Big E just goes, "Well, I'm confused. Like, what we heading towards here? We heading towards the tag? Are we?" And then he just shut up. So obviously, someone in his ear was like, "Shut up, shut up, shut up." And I thought that was quite funny. That obviously he's just there, sort of thinking, "Oh well, I can probably say what I want," and then they're like, "Can you not give away the farm, please?"
my two favourite bits from the whole thing was the panel, because as Paul mentioned, CM Punk was on that panel, and he was basically just there to get people to start punching each other in the face, which I don't know if he was just leaning heavily into the stereotype of what happened in AEW.
One thing that Andy will definitely appreciate was the fact that at one point Big E said, when they were talking to CM Punk, Big E chimed in with, "I'm just here so you don't get fined."
Phenomenal.
The other bit that I liked was when Seth Rollins was on stage and he tried to introduce Cody, and then Roman Reigns came out instead, and them two had a little bit of a verbal ding-dong about their time and their history gone by. And Seth said, "It's nice of you to turn up to work for once," of which the crowd really cheered to. And Roman Reigns said something back to him, "At least I've not turned up in my wife's shoes," as the camera cut to his shiny patent leather loafers with big white bows on the top, which I quite enjoyed that. He got a decent reaction as well.
Well, I thought Seth did quite well there, because this is coming off the back of the previous week's SmackDown, I think, where Roman had come out and said something about Seth, and the crowd didn't react. So, quick as a flash, he went, "That's right, no pop." I was like, "Oh, that's a bit snipped up." Jesus Christ.
It has been getting quite tasty. I think like you say, Big E possibly has given a bit away, because part of me now fully expects both titles to be defended on night 2 and there to be a tag match night 1. It can't be the other way around, because surely the title's got to be the main thing. Finishing the story and all that. But yeah, as we mentioned there, CM Punk was on that panel because following his return to all the pomp and circumstance at Survivor Series, Punk's dream of competing at WrestleMania 40 seemingly over, as he tore his right triceps during the Rumble match. He did finish as runner-up, but as he rightly said himself, nearly's only good for horseshoes and hand grenades. And despite the injury, Punk has stuck around. He was part of that panel, and he's been delivering some off-air promos after Raw this week. The fact he's still around makes me think that he still might have a part to play at Mania, just not in the intended capacity. Part of me thinks because it's in Philly and there's the link to him and ECW in that area, I wondered if they might get him to be the host, or is the injury not quite as bad as they're making it out, and he'll have. Well, I'm not saying he's not injured. He absolutely is injured. I've seen the piece of hardware that he's having to wear on his arm at the moment. But is the possibility of an interference or a special guest referee or something
referee
of that
or enforcer or something like that kind of thing? Yeah.
I think the only problem is you don't really want to be messing around with a triceps, because obviously this is what his third match in a row that he's come back and he's suffered an injury. So if he's already teetering on the edge of him being a bit, made of glass, do you really want to sort of if you know that he's recovering from surgery, do you really want to push it that far and stuff like that?
I mean,
I imagine there's an idea that potentially, if you want to keep him involved and stuff like that, the easiest way for me would be have him as the guest commentator for the Seth Championship. Would be that would be the way that I would go personally.
There's one way that will happen, which might be foreshadowing later on in the podcast. But if a certain person gets through to face Rollins, I think that's probably more likely. I'm just disappointed for him because I know that he's got his detractors for sure, and he doesn't always go about things in the right way. But I think there was a lot of money left on the table by the way that the injuries sort of fallen. And let's face it, it's punching people in the face arm that's gone. So at least people can breathe a little bit easier backstage for the next 6 to 9 months.
I was listening to a podcast where they were going through like the end of year awards from, I can't remember if it was the Wrestling Observer or if it was PWI or whatever it was, but I think someone as a joke had suggested that feud of the year was CM Punk versus AEW, which I thought was quite funny.
Well, based around the current turnaround, probably this year's would be TNA management versus every single member of their roster. Oh my god. For those of you that aren't up to date with Impact, Scott D'Amore was recently released from his position, and a lot of the talent are not happy about it, and they've been extending contracts for, when people have missed time out to injury and things like that. People aren't happy about that. And pretty much every single member of the top tier level of the Impact roster, or TNA roster now, started posting egg timers on their socials, indicating the countdown to the end of their contracts. Everybody seems to think so.
I can't think who it was, but there was someone. I think it was a commentator or the ring announcer or something like that. But I saw that someone had put, "Wait, I want to join it." They just did ... timer on their Twitter feed, and I was like, "Yeah, that's quite good actually."
Someone had to, one of the ones I'd seen on the reply said, either everybody's waiting to leave or Karrion Kross is getting a huge payday. Was the
I honestly thought you were going to say something like either they're all waiting to leave or we've got a hell of a lot of boiled eggs coming in or something like that.
It's going to be either very messy or very expensive, I would suggest, for the current TNA owners at this point. But yeah, we're kind of gone off there. But getting back towards the other stuff, like you said, Bayley wins the Women's Rumble, and again, let's face it, absolutely no way she wasn't. The perhaps more unexpected twist in the tale is that she's now challenged her former stablemate in Io Sky to a match for her WWE Women's title at WrestleMania. Have you seen how this was revealed? Did you see the announcement of who she wanted to face?
Yeah.
To me, this was the best thing that Bayley's been involved in. It's probably since Damage Control were formed back at SummerSlam. I thought it was very clever. It was all setting up for the announcement. Then she reveals that she knows that the Japanese contingent of Damage Control have been disrespecting her behind her back, and she delivered some of the final lines of her promo in Japanese to cue the shocked faces of Kairi, Asuka, and Io. I loved it. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, I thought it was clever.
Yeah, it was very good.
I'm also pleased that Bayley's not just going to get fed to Rhea Ripley, because that to me is not a match that we need to see at this point in time. I think Bayley hasn't been on the greatest of streaks until winning the Rumble. I think she even noted herself that she'd been on a bit of a downer. So I think feeding it to Rhea Ripley would have been a mistake. I quite like the fact that she's going against somebody who probably feels beatable at this point, for the fact that she's been somewhat protecting herself for the last, however many months. And yeah, speaking of setting up matches for WrestleMania, it seems we may be getting Uso versus Uso. You seen any of this?
Saw little bits of it. I didn't see the Jay versus Gunter match, but I saw what had happened at the end of it to sort of cause the conclusion to the match, so to speak.
Yeah, so as Paul alluded to, Jey Uso had a match against Gunther for the Intercontinental title on Raw this past week. Whilst Gunther may have retained to continue his record-breaking run, which, by the way, he has now held the title longer in one single reign than any other superstar has held over combined reigns, which is just insane. But yeah, that meant the retention came as Jimmy Uso, first off, just got the ring bell and started ringing it to confuse people, and then jumped the barrier and had a bit of a scrap with his brother. To me, they're undoubtedly one of the best tag teams of modern generation, if not ever. So to get them to face each other at WrestleMania kind of feels like a bit like a dream match. Like possibly maybe more for them as brothers than maybe the wider world. But I'm very excited to see it. I think there's a lot they can do with it.
Yeah.
I think they almost sort of like tested the waters somewhat with putting him in as 1 and 2 in the Rumble, didn't they? So,
yeah, that kind of. Well, I think that he got a good pop as well. I found that. I mean, you always get, as long as it's not going to be like a surprise entrant James Ellsworth coming in at number 1, I think you're always probably going to get a decent reaction. But I think that works quite nicely anyway. But yeah, and then finally for the news, I've got the WWE Experience is now open in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. It looks pretty good. I'm not going to lie, it would be awesome if it was somewhere a little bit more accessible to me. But yeah, Thunderdome Experience, you get to walk the ramp, go through like a proper gorilla position. It seems to almost be like a simulated show that you get to take part in, apart from the actual having of a match. But the other attractions there include Build a Superstar, Undertaker's Graveyard, and of course, a huge shop. But the Undertaker's Graveyard thing, I think, is a little bit. It seems to be different to the sort of the Streak Graveyard that was at Access years ago. There's a bit more to it. I think there's a lot more. It seems to be more artifacts from his career and things like that. But they pushed the launch of it. They sent over Natalya, obviously, who had the first women's match in the country, has wrestled there since, and sent over Braun Strowman, who looks kind of like like if somebody had stuck a bit of a foot pump in Cowboy Brock Lesnar at this stage. He is a very large Crocodile Dundee cowboy hat wearing son of a gun right now. But yeah, it almost feels like a physical sort of Hall of Fame would have been a good addition to the setup. But I can't see that happening in Saudi. I think they'd have to replicate the thing in the US, maybe. And I think that's the only way they tie the two together. Obviously, if they feel like opening one of them in the UK, just, come on down, because I think we'd be there in the first few weeks.
Preferably in the north of England, you say?
I don't think that they'll just whack it in York just to pander to our needs. Do you know what I mean? Just Mick Foley.
WWE have announced a buyout of the Barbican.
We've listened to Yorkshire's premier podcast, premier wrestling podcast, and we know exactly where this all is going.
But yeah, that as far as news and a bit of a roundup as what's happened since the Rumble, that's kind of what I've got for now. So this feels like an opportune time to just recharge the glasses, take a little bit of a breather, and we will dive straight back into some Elimination Chamber predictions. So don't go anywhere, and we will be right back to you.
Recording in progress.
And we're back. See, wasn't long at all. And as promised, I'm going to dive straight in. So the WWE Elimination Chamber is international again for the second Elimination Chamber running. Last year was in Montreal, and this year is even further afield in Perth, Western Australia. As such, fans in the US will finally know what it's like to have to get up in the middle of the night as festivities kick off at 5 a.m. Eastern time. So even, it's a bit of an early morning, it's not a late night. But that does mean, however, that it's 10 a.m. start here. So breakfast and wrestling, anyone? Is the odd other day on Saturday.
No, funnily enough, I believe it is at Yates's in York City Centre. They are doing a breakfast wrestling ticket where you could take your kids along to watch the pay-per-view.
I mean, you had to spoil it. Come on. Had they gone for like a bottomless brunch kind of a deal? Maybe not seen the winner of the chamber, but hey, whatever.
By the way, just to sort of throw a little spanner in, like, technically this is the third year in a row that the chamber's taking place outside of the States. I believe in 2022.
Oh,
it was in Saudi.
You are correct, sir. You are correct. Yeah, I don't have a stats mistress. My cupboard is too small, so unfortunately, yeah. Paul is correct. In fact, Paul has now earned himself the title of getting over stats mistress. That sounds wrong. Anyway, moving on.
It sounds wrong that it's taken until now for that to happen. I always worked on the principle that was set in stone before the first episode. But
He's tricked us all this time by being wrestling Rain Man, and it's secretly just stats mistress was what he was aiming for. So, but yeah, we'll move along. So as always, the match information is taken from WWE.com and is correct at the time of recording. And considering it's a huge hurrah abroad, there's only 4 matches announced. I'd say so far, but again at time of recording, SmackDown this coming Friday was pre-recorded, and as far as I've read, there are no further match announcements. Yeah, a little bit light. Anyway, we'll get into it. So the 4 on the card I have is the WWE Women's World Title match. So Rhea Ripley defending against Nia Jax. A tag team championship match where Finn Balor and Damian Priest are defending against Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. There is a women's elimination chamber match and a men's elimination chamber match, both of which to determine the challenger for the equivalent world heavyweight title at WrestleMania. So, first off, we'll start with the home country girl, Rhea Ripley, bringing back the title to defend against longtime rival Nia Jax. Nia's been getting involved with Rhea Ripley since her return to WWE last September and hasn't had a title match yet, as far as I'm aware. This has kind of angered Nia Jax, so she's finally taken matters into her own hands by relentlessly attacking the champion week after week. There's been a bit of a mix-up with the old announce teams as well now, because Pat McAfee's back as announcer on Raw with Michael Cole, and that's moved Wade Barrett over to SmackDown with Corey Graves. And since Pat McAfee's return, there's been some very bizarre phrases, because particularly when Nia Jax has been, for want of a better expression, squishing Rhea Ripley, he keeps using the phrase, is it sternum to spine, and every time he says it, it just makes me feel a bit like, ugh. Like, just the thought of it is like, ugh. But I guess that's kind of like the point. But yeah. But yeah, because of the attacks, obviously that's brought around the title match. It's been booked for Elimination Chamber. Is it a chance for Rhea to get even, or is it going to be Nia's time to shine? Now, bear in mind, I have prefaced this with the fact that she's in her home country at the event before WrestleMania and has been ripping everybody a new one all year long. I'm pretty sure I'm about to write the same name 4 times, right?
I am working on the principle that for some of these matches, you have pre-filled the boxes.
Stop pulling the curtain back at me, come on.
I'm just like, I looked, like, when it came through, I looked at some of them and I was like, okay, I wonder who we're going to pick for this match.
Well, on that note, hence why I've discussed with you guys ahead of time a tiebreaker, which we will get to during the Elimination Chamber predictions, but just for confirmation, we're all picking Rhea Ripley, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So, obviously, this jumps us forward to the next pay-per-view, but whoever it is that wins that chamber, I don't even think that matters. Like, to me, you don't beat Rhea Ripley at this point for... I mean, there's the argument to be made that well, it's worked. It's worked this far with Roman Reigns, and people are still buying tickets. So
until you see longest reigning champion next to her name, just put her name down for every single match between now and then.
I mean, that's very much been flavour of the month for the last 3 years, so it wouldn't surprise me if they take that out with the women's division as well. I think did she win it at last year's, and then it obviously turned into the incarnation of the title that she's got now. So technically, she's coming on for a year as champion. I think the problem that they've got is that the people who would be believable challengers have been within the last year so far beaten into submission that at this point there's nobody at her level. They've done an okay job with Nia Jax, but realistically nobody wants to see her as champion over Rhea Ripley. So the fact that Ripley's in one of the more popular groups in the company, I would suggest that she's even eclipsed Becky Lynch over the last year in terms of popularity. She's definitely shifted more merch than anybody else in the Judgment Day, or she's got to be top 3 or top 4 for merch sellers on Raw, I would have expected. So everything's kind of, I mean, if she wasn't, think how much of a boost she's going to get this weekend when all the hometowners go down and pick up everything that says her name on it.
I looked because I like the is it the Judgment Day T-shirt at the moment with all their names on.
Mm-hmm.
2 things. Wow, that was expensive when I looked at how much it was. And
Yep.
2, they really missed a trick not doing for like a limited run of R-Truth's little sticker on the bottom as well.
No, they did. They absolutely did.
They?
Yeah. And it was done in a style, like the old KO T-shirt where it looked like the initials were put on with duct tape. They made it look like masking tape with pen on the top. So they did do that, but that's all been squashed now, obviously, since the recent ejection. But yeah, okay, we're all in the book. I thought that would be the case. We've got for Rhea Ripley. So next up on the card, the undisputed WWE Tag Team title match: Finn Balor and Damian Priest defending against Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate. So as mentioned last time out on the pod, Pete Dunne is back and he's rejoined Tyler Bate in the tag division. They had to win a fatal 4-way qualifier and then met DIY in the final because they won a different 4-way qualifier, and that was to advance to Perth for a title shot. Dunne picked up the win via a bitter end for his team, and as we were just saying, Judgment Day seems to have taken a bit more of a serious turn again, distancing themselves from R-Truth shenanigans of the past few months. The only person that seems to still be getting involved with R-Truth is Dom, because he's sort of appeared to interfere at the end of qualifying matches and such, and sort of has caused a bit of mischief with Dom, but hasn't really had any interactions with the rest of the group for the last few weeks. But yeah, can Finn and Damien keep their edge and retain the titles in Australia? Shout out to the founder, clearly, in that little bit of a roundup. So yeah, tag titles. Who's taking them? Balor and Priest or Dunne and Bate? I would suggest this may be very, very similar to last time around. Well, let's leave Paul to last then to build the suspense.
Oh no, I absolutely am going for the Judgment.
I was setting you up then, so you could be like, oh, just there.
I could have done that thing where I give out the sort of the massive spiel as to it's Bate and Dunne's first time together. It's since they've faced each other for the UK Championship. La la la, blah blah blah. Do the sort of the whole 10 minutes, and then just go. So Judgment Day to retain.
Well, it's a strange one for Tyler Bate because obviously he has been in the tag division before, but primarily in NXT and NXT UK. But in WWE, he's never really had Pete Dunne as his partner. It was always Trent Seven, who's now obviously off doing other things. So it is kind of a bit of a fresher end, if you like, of British strong style to the uninitiated.
Well, haven't they got a new name now? Something like New Catch Wrestle Twins or something weird like that.
Yeah, because I'm in agreement in the sense of, yes, I think there is a new name, and it rolls off the tongue so well that none of us can quite remember it, other than the fact it's got Catch in it. But that's a little bit too similar to the Drew Gulak, Charlie Dempsey group in NXT for me. I'm not overly keen on it. I don't know why British Strong Style's not just been used. Presumably they've got some sort of issue, because there's this whole thing about, if it's a cool name that you've used beforehand, we'll just give you a shit one to replace it, so we don't have to pay you any royalties. British Strong Style is the name to use. There is no other name. It's what everybody in this country will know them as, regardless of whatever nonsense they come up with.
English immense fashion. Whoa.
I know, because with Triple H having that whole connection with West Ham, it'll be some sort of football hooligan name, won't it? It'll be anyway. So, Paul.
The only kind of thing I thought was, if they do want a title change, it's quite an easy one to do. And obviously, you've still got Priest carrying around that briefcase that I presume he's got to use soon.
Before Money in the Bank, innit? Yeah.
I was wondering about this with the briefcase, because obviously they've had successful cash-ins, they've had unsuccessful cash-ins. They've never had it run out.
Yeah, but that's just crap if they do that. Like, what's the point?
But it could be that he's held it back because he's never had a good opportunity, and it could be that they get into by the way, just so you know, this is the last day that the contract is valid, and he tries to cash it in, and whoever they're feuding with at the time, if they're still for the tag chance, costs him the match. Or makes it so that he never officially gets to cash it in.
I mean, if they do that, they might as well just throw Money in the Bank in the bin, because that's just...
I agree.
True, but I suppose then what it does is that it sort of forces the holder to not leave it too long, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but they've got a form, haven't they? Because the women's one, I think the collectively held time, I think 99.9% of it is Carmella, whereas everybody else is like, oh, just do it straight away. Whereas the men's, they kind of...
Either that, or the women's briefcase is actually made of lightning. And they can literally only get it down, and then it's like, Jesus Christ, that just cash it, get rid of it.
You're trying to say that Carmella likes rubber gloves? Is that what you're insinuating?
If you want to make that the narrative, mate, you go ahead. I'm having nothing to do with that.
Yeah, we should probably move away from that particular cul-de-sac. So yeah, we were getting around to everybody predicting Balor and Priest. Apart from Matt now, I feel like Matt...
No.
Right, okay, cool.
I'm not stupid.
Okay, right, let me pop all those down. It's almost like my book should have a copy of this.
If there's 100 alternative universes, in one of those 100, maybe Balor done and fate win, but in the other 99, 100%.
So, moving on to number 3, and I've got this one down as the Women's Elimination Chamber match. On par with recent years, I fully expect this to probably be the one that kicks off the show. That or Ripley, we'll see. Anyway, the Elimination Chamber match is to determine the number 1 contender to the Women's World Championship, obviously currently held by Rhea, and it entails Liv Morgan versus Raquel Rodriguez versus Naomi versus Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair versus new girl Tiffany Stratton. All of the competitors face stiff competition to qualify for the Chamber, but a special mention to Shotzi at this point. She was scheduled to take part in a qualifying match, but tore her ACL at NXT just a few days before the qualifying match took place. She did that during an NXT Women's title match. They stopped the match halfway through, and it didn't sound like a pleasant situation. She's going to be out now for around 9 months or so speedy recovery. I did see that she'd undergone a successful surgery earlier this week, and in true Shotzi fashion, I believe the quote underneath it was, she was very grateful to the surgeon because he'd even managed to save her tattoo on her knee. So that's some precision work right there. But yeah, speedy recovery. I think she was just getting a bit of steam behind her as a character. She was starting to get a little bit more airtime. Had a new pop figure on the way, so that's always ticking a box for me. But I think that shows that they probably would have had to stick around on TV for a little longer. I'm not saying she would have necessarily won the Chamber, but she might have got a decent run on SmackDown. But yeah, Becky was the first one to qualify, and more surprisingly for her first Elimination Chamber match ever, by defeating Shayna Baszler. Bianca beat Michin, Liv Morgan beat Zoe Stark, a returning Naomi defeated Alba Fire, and Tiffany Stratton bested Zelina Vega. Raquel was the final entrant to qualify in probably the toughest task by winning a last chance battle royal on Raw. Obviously Raquel's had her own issues, not really been around too much of late. Turns out it was from a plethora of sort of ailments, in the sense of I think she had some allergies and some sort of weird stuff going on.
I saw a video that she posted on, I think it was Instagram or Twitter. I can't remember which one it was, but it looked like she had some sort of I don't know if she'd eaten something or something that completely disagreed with it, but the amount of rash that was on her face and then spread to her upper chest and her back, oh god, it looked horrendous.
Well, I think the quote underneath those photos was made me feel really sorry for her, because it looked rough, and obviously from her Latina background, she's now apparently no longer able to have tortillas or tequila, which was kind of her whole shtick. So, oh man, it looked bad, but she's seemingly got herself in a better place, and she slotted straight back into sort of number one contention. So with all that being said, who's getting the ticket to WrestleMania this coming weekend? Andy, do you want to go first?
Becky Lynch.
Okay. Any particular reason, or?
I just think that she's the most logical person to face Rhea Ripley.
Okay. Matt?
Same for me. I just looked at the list and I was like, there's nobody else that I can see them putting on the poster to sell WrestleMania. So yeah.
Paul?
Why don't you go first?
Okay. I've also gone for Becky Lynch. Not a massive shock. To me, she is possibly one of the bigger names within that match. There are other matches within this, as in people I would like to see face Rhea Ripley. For example, Bianca Belair, I'm sure would be a great opponent. The problem with Bianca Belair is I think that they're still going to try and shoehorn in this Jade Cargill match. So we'll see about that. Tiffany Stratton, too early for her. Naomi, fine, she's just come back, but unless they want to, scrape knee on pin off the mat, then probably leave that one alone for a while. Raquel, again, just come back, so there's no real steam behind her. The only other one that I would have picked would have been Liv Morgan, because she's again come back from injury. The injury was at the hands of Rhea Ripley, and she's getting a bit of traction online by dropping a few little bits into the ends of her promos. Whether they're supposed to be there or not, who will ever know? But it's starting to be billed as the Liv Morgan Revenge Tour, which that's tours haven't ever been billed as revenge tours in any kind of pop music world of late, have they? And not caught on. Anyway, it's picking up some steam. So Liv was the only other person, but purely for the fact that they had Becky interrupt Rhea at the Vegas press conference, that is the only reason ultimately that I went for Becky over Liv. Paul.
So, for nothing else other than the fact that they've made it quite clear in the sort of the promos, the way they've steered the TV. If I had to put money on it, I would be backing Becky Lynch. I just think there's something in the back of my head that's just saying it's so obvious that that's the way they're going. That's the way they're going. That's the way they're going. You always have like a little bit of doubt in your mind that there's one match that will just swerve you on. And I do wonder if it's this one, because I think they can get creative to find a way to get Becky back into the title picture. And it kind of plays into my previous comment of you don't really want Rhea to lose. But if you want to keep Becky strong, what's the best way to do both? Make it a triple threat. Put the pin on the other person that doesn't really matter as much. So, for sheer sort of, I mean, you can class it as points, or just to try and sort of think outside the box, I suppose. Stick me down for Liv Morgan.
Okay. Like I say, I would have picked her if it wasn't for that presser.
Plus, obviously, Liv Morgan's got she's got previous in the fact that like she's been eliminated second to last in the last 2 Rumbles, one of which was by Rhea Ripley, and they were a tag team.
And which female has been in the most Elimination Chamber matches so far? Liv Morgan.
Interesting. Well, there was that stat one that apparently of the 5, is it 5 or is it 6 Royal Rumbles we've had now for the women? 6. Of the 6 Royal Rumbles, there's only 2 women that have been in all 6. And it's Liv Morgan and Natalia.
Oh yeah. They put out a bit of a promo video on the WWE Instagram. I don't know if it was earlier today or yesterday. And it was asking superstars questions about the Elimination Chamber. One of which was, who's been in the most, and one of them was who won the most, which was Triple H. But I really particularly enjoyed the fact that Kevin Owens took the assignment seriously, and they asked him how much it weighed and how many miles of chain, and he said something like 18 tons. Something like 127 miles of chain, and it all weighs 16 ounces. He's been speaking to somebody in the props department, clearly. And he also gave the name of the person who won the most Rumble matches as somebody who's never been in won the most Elimination Chamber matches as somebody who's never been inside the Elimination Chamber. It said completely with a straight face, but I imagine it was more of a stop asking me stupid questions, I need to be doing other things. Anyway, we'll move on. Men's chamber match is the last match on the card for this podcast. And again, same setup to determine the number 1 contender to the World Heavyweight Championship currently held by Seth Rollins. It will be contested by Kevin Owens, Bobby Lashley, Randy Orton, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, and L.A. Knight. I'll quite happy to go first if you want me to, or if one of you guys want to jump in. But I'm jumping back on the old Scottish Express and going straight for Drew McIntyre. Matt is nodding along.
Yeah.
Ooh, there's a thumb from Paul. Andy, have we got clean sweeps again?
Yeah, Drew, Barney McGrew.
So I watched a show on YouTube the other day that said that this has had the most easy to call flavour to a podcast that the person in question had known in recent history. He said it's almost set up like you can pretty much guarantee who's going to win each match. And I agree, hence why I kind of threw the curveball in there with the Liv Morgan thing.
it is worth noting that Rollins is appearing on the show, as is Cody Rhodes, and they're doing a Grayson Waller effect. But whether that will have an effect on any of the outcomes of the matches, I doubt it very much. For me, this one, again, I'll go through it like I did the last one. Bobby Lashley, quite honestly, Bobby, really sorry to say this, but for the past 6 to 8 months, nobody gives a shit. Randy Orton was up there just purely because he's Randy Orton, and he's come back. He's had strong showings since. He was decent in the Fatal 4-Way at Royal Rumble, but it just wasn't quite enough. Logan Paul, still the US.
With the Randy Orton, the whole point was that it was supposed to be a one-on-one match for with him and Roman at Rumble 1.
Yep.
And then someone said, "Oh no, they don't want to beat him in that suit after him coming back." So they put Styles and LA Knight into the match.
Which by the way, just
isn't he going to have to lose? Isn't he going to have to lose here?
Slight tangent of AJ Styles there. That guy was furious this week. His rating from last year to this year, from 23 to 24 in the 2K games, he's gone from a 91 or a 92 to an 85. How that guy did not swear on the interview was beyond me, because he is a gamer as well, but for the wrong reasons that made me chuckle. Sorry, Matt.
I don't know what I was going to say now.
About Orton.
So I see. This is where I show my ignorance. I've never seen an Elimination Chamber match.
Ooh.
So I don't know exactly how they were. So
right.
Does he technically doesn't lose, does he?
Well, he does. No, he has to. The elimination in the sense of he has to be pinned or submitted. So, yeah, we probably should have gone through this before the women's one. But for those that don't know, 2 entrants start. They used to specify the timing intervals between then when a pod would open at random, whereas now on the WWE.com it just says
regularly scheduled intervals.
Regularly timed intervals. It doesn't specify a time, so I imagine that has a little bit of relevance on how long or short they're currently going. And then they just set the sound effect off, which, yeah. So after a certain time, a pod opens, somebody else comes in, and that repeats until all the pods are empty, and then basically the last person standing wins. But it has to be pinned or submitted to leave, unless there's some sort of hokey bullshit injury like they did to Bobby Lashley a few years ago. Was that last year? Was that the year before? I think it might have been the Saudi one.
That was the Saudi one.
But yeah, so he kind of, if Orton isn't going to be the winner, he does kind of have to eat one or the other. I think so. Yeah, we were going through them, weren't we? So Lashley no, Orton no, Logan Paul is US champion. There's no way that they're not going to have him in some kind of match at Mania for the US title. And do you know what? I wouldn't be disappointed if they went back to the well with him and Miz, because them two have done all right. LA Knight is starting to become that conundrum that can't really be answered, in the sense of when do they pull the trigger, because it's looking a lot like never again at this point in time. And that's
too many people come back that jump ahead of him on the card, and they should have pulled the trigger a while ago, and they haven't. And you can see on that kind of trajectory, it's kind of on that kind of. It's not over. He's over the peak. He's not on the fully way down, but it's that kind of thing of you missed your chance there.
We might just have stumbled upon it, because are they going to use this to set up Logan Paul versus LA Knight at Mania? Because that wouldn't be half bad either, because then that gives LA Knight his first title as well for me. We'll see. Kevin Owens, love the guy to bits. Really want him to start picking up some singles gold again at some point. I just can't see it. Drew McIntyre has been, since the Rumble, aside from all the bloodline nonsense, single-handedly the hottest hand going, to the point that he created a feud with CM Punk that wasn't really there. There was no real need for it, and it kind of came. But everything he said was logical, made a lot of sense. People got behind it. The fact that he's gone all in, for want of a better expression, on his socials about the fact that he's killed CM Punk's WrestleMania dream. A T-shirt has been printed with Drew McIntyre smiling over a graveside, and on the headstone reads CM Punk's WrestleMania 40, something like that. He's really going for it, and I just think he would be the best fit. And if Seth is going to end up with time off because of injuries or whatever, although that's been a bit quieter the last couple of weeks, with the whole bloodline thing kicking back in, miraculously when he needs to be Cody's Shield, he's all a little bit better again. But if you're going to need somebody to carry a title for a while and keep the title credible, Drew's the man for that as well. So that was my reasoning. We do need to very quickly just wrap things up because we've picked a lot of the same. We've got a tie break, and I'm going to set this out as us picking the first two entrants into the men's and women's chamber matches. So obviously I need two names from the 6 that are listed. So if you want to write these down, because if we all pick the same, we're also kind of stuffed. But yeah, tell me when you guys are ready. I think I am good with mine.
Which one do you want first?
Let's go for the women first.
Okay, can you stick me down for Tiff Stratton and Bianca Belair?
Okay. Yep, and Andy, you women?
Liv Morgan and Tiffany Stratton.
Okay, the good news is we've all got different doubles so far. So Matt, unless you take mine.
I've got Naomi and Liv Morgan.
Okay, and I have got Bianca and Liv. So we've all got variations. So fingers crossed one of us will be right with those. And for the men, so we'll go backwards. I've got LA Knight and Randy Orton for my two. Matt, your two?
I've got LA Knight and KO.
Andy?
Logan Paul and Kevin Owens.
Okay. And Paul to round out the tiebreak situation.
I'll go for LA Knight and Logan Paul.
So hopefully that'll work out. We might not even need it. We absolutely will need it, because Liv Morgan won't be winning the chamber. Paul, sorry to say. So LA Knight and Logan Paul were your two, right? Okay, so locked in then. Andy with Logan, KO, Liv, Tiffany Stratton. Paul with LA Knight, Logan Paul, Tiffany Stratton, Bianca Belair. Matt with LA Knight, Kevin Owens, Naomi and Liv. And myself with LA Knight, Randy Orton, and then Bianca and Liv. And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, brings us to the end of episode 61 of Getting Over. Has anybody else got any other business? In which case, there is just time to pack a bag, get on an aeroplane to Australia, and we'd still probably miss the beginning of Elimination Chamber because it takes fucking ages to get there. But that being said, enjoy your breakfast and wrestles this weekend if you are listening to us in the UK. If you are in the US, get up early. And we shall see you next time, just before WrestleMania. It's nearly here. So thank you very much, gents, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
So there we go. What do you think of that? Another pay-per-view. Sorry, premium live event. I do get that confused. Before you go, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. Send us your predictions. If you beat us, we'll send you a prize. That is it for this one. Join us next time when we'll have more wrestling, but until then, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Cookie Cast.